Okay, awesome. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming back for Y Talks. Thank you, Monica. And we are going to have a session today talking about ethical what ethical AI deployment looks like. Fairness, open source, the real cost of AI deployment is the name of our session for today. And I'm joined by Parul Gupta, who is, first of all, a software engineer, but also has done significant work in her volunteering space and her side projects work, and a lot of that just had to do with her being an earlier contributor to Fairlearn, and just kind of a number of different engagements that she has in this space. So I'm really excited to have you on today, Parul. I'm just going to have you give us a little bit of an introduction, tell us a bit about how you got into the space and maybe some of your work.
Oh, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. Uh, I am Parul and I am a software engineer with about 6 7 years of experience in the industry. Academically, I have done my master's in computer science from UMass and undergrad back, way back, also in computer science. Uh, I am a big advocate of open source in general. A lot of the people in the industry, in research, in making the hobby projects for themselves, do a lot of use a lot of open source tools, and so I have done that as well. And this is my way of giving back to the community in any possible way, be it actually code changes or bug fixing or filing issues, participating in discussions, or even advocating for the open source projects that exist. So for me, the AI ethics and everything related to AI started from the Fairlearn itself, which you just described. It's one of the open source Python library that's used to assess and mitigate bias in an AI system.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about, what does it mean to build AI that's actually fair? We hear that ethical AI, fairness, bias, reducing bias, right? We talk about that a lot. So I wanted to have like a dedicated session to that, just because open source communities are so important in that conversation, and obviously so is research, and obviously so is having ethical practices when you're building and when you're in the corporate world, in the entrepreneurial world, bringing products to market. So we want to talk about it because it's not just like this nebulous like ethical checklist, right? And we don't want it to, so much of it I think can come across like this compliance theater, right? It sounds like things are happening, but like not a lot is actually happening. So this is a session dedicated to like the technical, cultural, human work of reducing bias and what that looks like. And also like the notion too of like fair enough, right? Every product team, every team period that's working with AI to some degree is gonna have to decide on what like a certain threshold of performance or of fairness like that they're satisfied with, right? This is math, so there's gonna be stuff above, stuff below. So yeah, in this one, we do have someone that, has been in this space, and I'm super excited. So I guess let's start there. Parul, how do you define fairness in AI systems? How does that definition shift depending on context? And maybe talk about some of the factors that you weigh as you're conceptualizing fairness.
Yeah, so one of the things that I have seen people talk about is that when it comes to ethical AI itself, they often talk about privacy and compliance and security aspects of it. What they forget is the moral aspect of it, something like fairness in itself. And when it comes to defining fairness in an AI system, it's non-trivial. It's a they call it's a socio-technical problem in the sense that it's not just mathematics, but it's also humanity involved in mathematics. So in that regard, it's not one size fits all. There is no right algorithm. There is no right mathematical equation that can solve everything. Uh, it's very subjective and it depends on the context, as you just mentioned, like how do you shift the context? Uh, how I like to think about it, it's basically what is the objective that you're trying to solve? What is the AI system meant to do? You don't just use AI for the sake of AI. There is an objective to it. Is it recommending something? Is it loan application improvements? Is it I don't know, credit cards approvals, things like that? Or the other way to think about it is that who will be your customers, in the sense that who will be using this AI system, who is the end user, and how does it affect those customers? Um, is the data that this model was trained upon was similar to your end users or not? How much is the ambiguity or the difference between your training data and the end users that are using this AI system in itself? Um, I think a lot of these things are bound through the legal and regulatory foundations as well, in the sense that some industries where you use AI, you will have more stricter AI legal regulations and regulatory fees that comes with it to make sure that things are in place and they're not causing harm to the end customer. Whereas in some industries, there's also like, more leeway to it. So depending on which industry it is and who are your customers, the concept of fairness just shifts.
And even in the context of like who's building it, right? I think when we were talking about this session, there was just a moment where we were talking about like the gender gap in open source contributions, in the way that teams are formed, not necessarily from a gender perspective, but just in terms of who's making up that team, right?
Yes, I do think that the AI system in itself is very reflective of who are building these models, who are from the investors to stakeholders to the everyone who's deploying the system, the developers themselves. Are they conscious about this? Are they thoughtful about this? Are they able to interpret and understand these consequences that their AI system may have? Like just working in the blind doesn't solve the issues. Knowing the end-to-end product is the key, and being cautious about it is the key.
And like just having been in your, in your position and having done the work that you've done, like, do you think that there is fairness in how they're thinking about it? Like,
Uh, I think that the space is growing at a rapid rate, in the sense that in this in this era of AI and Gen AI and everything coming up and people building models on top of models, they really don't understand the internals of it. And that causes the issues. You need to understand what's happening there. There is this amount of AI literacy that I see lacking in a lot of people, and the more AI literacy you bring into the people who are using it or building these models can really help elevate this issue and make sure that these systems are used in a more fair way.
yeah. I mean, even defining it, right? Because like we start with that question, like how do we define it, right? It seems like it's gonna depend on what is the product. Like, do you feel like there's I don't know, like a framework or like an objective way to define whether some AI system is fair?
Yes, that's a very interesting question. It's a very overloaded question also. So yeah, there are a lot of research that's been done in this fairness stream. So there's a lot of how do we define this mathematically or more objectively as we can. Uh,
Mhm.
in a very layman terms, I like to describe it as, imagine that you have this entire space and you want to find the best solution. So best solution, I mean, like, let's say really high success rate or whatever. This
Mhm.
point is, let's say, the best solution. Now, you, instead of thinking in the entire space, you take a boundary that, oh, anything within this boundary is the ideal state. So now you find the best solution within that boundary. And that's like, a way of controlling the AI systems in saying that, okay, the solution only lies in this possible areas. Now, the interesting thing is that there is no black and white. There is, you just cannot say that, oh, there is this line that anything over here is the right solution, anything over there is not the right solution. So that's where like the haziness comes in, the blurriness comes in, and all of this, like how do you shift? How do you decide what's the line? How do you decide these thresholds? That's where these things come from.
And it's a blurry line because I see it getting blurrier, by the day, right? Because it's like, again, if we hold such a high standard, then you get to this like logical conclusion that like, well, none of the AI deployments are fair because there's always going to be room for, I mean, is it fair? Like if a company is learning more about you and what you want, and they're showing you a product at just the right time and at just the, is that fair? Like, do they have to hurt you? Do they have to, like that's the thing is like, how much of behavior, and I know it's hard to answer that question, it's more of a discussion about it than anything else, because like this is a moving target, like it's like we keep going and we see more deployments that are unethical or lead to harm, and then we're like, okay, that's bad, don't do that, but something has to happen to like trigger that. And even then, do we have legislation to support it? It's like everybody's just doing it based on them being a good steward.
Yeah, a lot of this happens like as a vibe-based scenario, like you don't know what's right or wrong. But I think that the policymakers and government and like all of these organizations are coming in together. They are becoming more aware of the situation. They're trying to play catch up, but they're trying to have policies to at least have some threshold standards. It doesn't need to be super high, but like, some threshold standards. The way I like to think about it is that I think that you don't necessarily have to be absolutely fair or absolutely equal in terms of providing your experience to the end customers. You don't just have to harm them in any way. So having that baseline is easier to define than keeping up to the highest standards.
Sure. And then let's talk about like some misconceptions about fairness in machine learning. Are there any like popular ones that you'd want to discredit or set the record straight on?
There's so many. I think one thing is that I just briefly touched upon is that fairness is not one size fits all. It's not like you have this one thing that will solve every type of problems and every solution. At the same time, you cannot just combine all the definitions of fairness into one and then say that, oh, now I am ideal because I have all the principles incorporated. That can often counteract with what you are actually trying to achieve with the AI system. It might not produce any results that you really desired. Uh, the other misconception, which is at a more core level, is that people think that it's just a data problem. Bias is just a data problem. It's really not. Uh, I agree that, there is this popular saying of garbage in and garbage out. So I do agree that if the data is bad, then the output will be bad. The output will be more biased and will harm the end users. But it's more than that. AI systems are more than that. They can introduce new biases throughout their ML lifecycle, and they can also amplify the bias that may be very implicitly embedded in that data, which can actually increase the blast radius of the harms that it can do.
Can you maybe give us like an example where fairness um interventions actually impacted a model that was in deployment?
Oh, I think a few years ago, this came in the news and it became like a big thing wherein some company deployed face recognition systems using AI technology. And what really happened there was that it started misclassifying darker skinned people
Hmm.
as non-humans or like as objects,
Hmm.
because the intrinsic issue over there was that the entire data set that it was trained upon on a much lighter skinned people. So even though the intention was not to only use it on a lighter skinned people, it was to use on entire demographics across the globe. The This thing was learned by the AI in itself, and this thing was amplified so much that it just recognized human faces as light-skinned people. It did
Hmm.
not take into account any other demographics of different parts of the world or different skin colors, for instance. But now, if you look at these face recognition models, even in your phone, for example, you'll see that they have become really good now. There has been a lot of fairness interventions that have happened, and this is like a real life deployment model in itself that has showcased like these fairness aspects can really help.
Yeah, I mean, especially the facial recognition ones are just so horrific. Like I know they did that Netflix documentary about that. Um, I'm coded bias, I think it was. Joy Buolamwini was one of the researchers that was involved with the MIT, and they were anyway. The facial recognition one is something that they talked about a lot in that one. So definitely recommend that if you haven't seen it. Okay, and then let's talk a little bit about like the actual risks, right? Because like I was sort of touching on that when I was saying, the lack of regulation, because I mean, I know like different industries are regulated at different rates, but, this sort of like lack of like an overarching kind of commonly agreed upon guardrails, I guess, that are being mandated. We don't quite have like an elaborate infrastructure to support that. So, um, I feel like a lot of the pressure does come from, you know, the risk side, like managing risk when you're coming to market with a new product or changing a product. So let's talk a little bit about that. What are those hidden costs when companies don't prioritize fairness? You know, I understand the risks like for us, right? Kind of
Yes.
along the lines of that just example, but um, I want also to sort of enunciate that risk for businesses themselves, because a lot of the times it's framed as like a consumer thing, and like it is a consumer thing, but it's a business thing too.
Yeah, yeah. I go to a lot of these conferences and meetups where I see a lot of people talking about building some app or using an AI technology within 5 minutes, or building an AI chatbot, for instance, or using AIs for health consultations or for mental therapies and things like that. Uh, all of these things are good and nice because the intention of the developer was not to harm the customer. The intention of the developer was to make money or to bring the product to market sooner and get profits out of it and use these cool technologies that exist. However, at this point, a lot of these aspects of ethical AI and moral in these things are not thought about. They're like often overlooked. Many a times, these people do get away with these things, but because there are no regulations and stuff involved, but a lot of times these hidden costs that we're talking about can also lead to really $1 million lawsuits and things like that. It is the reputational damage that a business can have because of the customers losing trust. It can be proper lawsuits that people sue them, leading to class actions and things like that, where businesses can go bankrupt and have to shell out a large scale of money to compensate for the harm that they've done. There is also revenue losses. I was reading an article where they mentioned that there are these reported revenue losses for these businesses who did not incorporate all of these things or did not think about how AI can actually harm or ill advise their customers unintentionally.
Yeah. And, and I know we touched on this a little bit, but how do we know, like, when a model is fair enough, who decides that? Like, how have you seen that work when you've worked in this space?
Yeah, it's I would say it's pretty difficult to decide, but I often backtrack it from the customer's point of view. That's the easiest way to go about with this. Like, how do you define that what is fair enough? One of the terms that's used often is humanizing AI, which basically means that adding a human element to the AI, adding a human touch to the AI. So it's not just like, machine doing everything. Machine is helping a human decide things. So it's like an advisor, it is not the decision maker. And that's how you can make things fairer in certain ways. Um, Again, as I mentioned before, one of the things that I like to do a lot is to ensure that there is this minimum threshold of harm that we ensure that we are not putting. The rest of the things on how it comes to making uh, something fair also depends upon the industry that you're deploying these AI models into. Some industries may have a higher threshold of going about and causing harm. However, some industries may have very little threshold to do these things. For example, healthcare, you want to make sure that it's exact and it's not biased.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing, like, again, going back to that whole thing about context, mattering. I think the hard thing is, like, from a bird's eye view, we do start to see these shifts, like one of which just, the idea that even the idea that there are less women contributing to open source AI projects, like those kinds of like troubling, like grander kind of themes, I think impact this like so much. So, when the standards themselves or the communities that are kind of creating the standards, whether directly or indirectly, becoming themselves less fair, like I think that that must have that like general repercussion. So, yeah, just from your experience, like you've been involved in open source work for years. So, why do you think there are fewer women contributing to those kinds of projects?
Uh, I think it's just the confidence. I think women inherently are those type of people who are more submissive in the sense that they ask for permissions. They're more oriented towards asking for permission, making sure that they're hitting all those minimum requirements before they apply to something. Whereas men, on the other hand, are more authoritative. They don't care about the minimum requirements. They don't care about asking for permission. They'll ask for forgiveness later. Uh, but in general, it's just the confidence in yourself, the confidence in your capabilities. Uh, Throughout my tech experience, tech career, I've met so many women who've underestimated themselves, even though they were really, really, really good software engineers. However, uh, the other way around, when it comes to men, a lot of these, okay, I shouldn't be generalizing it, but then in most cases, I've seen that they take ownership of their capabilities, and it just becomes very natural for them to easily get into this open source space. So I think like it's like, the confidence that leads to a barrier into the entry itself.
Yeah, because it's almost, I mean, it's not that they are that way, right? It's that they're rewarded to be that way and socialized to be that way. So,
Yeah.
that's the thing. What like it becomes this like hard thing because, I was looking at the numbers like about software. I think it was software engineering majors, that there are fewer female software engineering majors now than they were in like 1980. So,
Oh, wow.
that I think is part of it, right? But it's like you get this like surge of excitement at the beginning of something, and like there's all this participation, and then it's like because of that socialization, because of that those patterns, they're just really seeped in patterns and patterns that like I fall victim to too, like not applying for certain jobs or being like, oh, I haven't done enough stuff to do that project or whatever it might be, you know? So it's like we're constantly having to check ourselves. But obviously like not all of that onus can fall on us as individuals, right? So I don't know, how do you see that shift? How do you see a shift in that imbalance? What are like maybe some practical ways that people, organizations can shift that imbalance?
Uh, I think even before the organization itself, a lot of it comes from within. So yeah, I do agree that it's not just us, but it's also something that should come from within. There are no minimum requirements. There is nothing like that. You don't need to be scared of it. You just need to start doing things. There is nothing like you are not good enough. Everyone can start and start contributing. There is nothing like you need to have something in place. But yeah, when it comes to what are the organizational efforts or we as a society can do to reduce that imbalance, I think one of the things that has really helped me is looking at people just above me, above in the sense of a few years older to me or a few roles above my level or things like that, like few years more into the industry than I have been. uh, that has really helped me. Some of the best mentors within my workplace or outside of my workplace or even in the open source ecosystem have been women who've really supported me and really pushed me to be more involved, participate more, go into network more, go into more conferences, talk about things. So that has really helped me. And I think, and I really hope that more women do that so that there is this, uh, inspiration to look up to and be like, oh, I want to be that person. Uh, you never know, someone might actually be looking at you right now and being like, oh, I want to be Irene.
I'm so sorry if that's what, no. Okay, so yeah, I mean, if that's I think that is practical. And I think there needs to be like maybe a bit of a push because I think about it sometimes, like I had to get rid of this like perfectionism, before, just like I always was trying to deliver really good stuff, Now I don't. No, but it is something to unlearn, and it is kind of a revolutionary idea in a way, right? You don't have to be perfect. Like you don't have to have all the qualifications, and to like instill a certain behavior in us as women that like do it anyway. Like do it even though you don't have that stuff. Let them, and I know it's like so easy to say that, and but it is like something we have to challenge, and that challenging is very hard, especially when you don't have like a pattern of doing it,
It
and in
is
this
very
context.
intimidating. It is so intimidating, but it's so nice when you actually do it and you achieve it, and then you have this thing like, oh wow, I finally made it.
And it never really goes away either. Like I was like writing the second edition of my book and job searching, and I was like, oh no, I think I shouldn't write this. And my publisher was like, yes, you should. What do you mean? You already wrote it. Like this is just an improvement on what you already wrote. Like how could you feel like you shouldn't do, it's like it's silly. It really never ends. Like honestly, every time I catch myself, like I have to like have a talk with myself and be like, remember what we said to ourselves and also people on the internet, you know so yeah, it's uncomfortable for sure, but it's what we have to do, and then like on the organizational side, I guess, anything that they can do to shift the imbalance.
Um, I think just having open gates and encouraging people is one step to reduce that barrier to entry. I've had some of the open source communities have been really good that they've been like, oh, do you want to come in and just chat about these things? Let's set up a 101. Let's do a mentorship program, things like that. Those have really boosted the confidence and have really made me get into the open source. And I really think that other people will also appreciate and enjoy this feeling of being welcomed into the space.
Yeah, and let's talk about that because I think it's AI. People do get intimidated. They do feel like, "Oh, I don't know how it really works and I can't get involved." So, um and also I liked that part of your background, right? Like you you are a few years into your career and probably before that too, just getting involved with the space, but I think that's like really accessible. Like you're yeah, you're showing kind of where someone might be 6 or 7 years down the line, so just in that spirit, if someone's new to open source, they want to get involved, especially if they don't have that traditional engineering background. um, and by the way, guys, for the purposes of the video, we're gonna include some resources when that video goes live on our YouTube channel, so I'll put those in the event description or the comments, however it shakes out. So if you are on the call today, like I'll I'll make sure that that's highlighted. But yeah, if people don't have like a traditional engineering background, I guess how would you suggest that they contribute to open source?
This is one of the most asked questions because a lot of the people want to contribute to open source, want to influence the industry, make the change, but don't know how. And my simplest answer is that you don't need to do a code change to be involved in open source. Uh, it is good to get your hands dirty with coding. It is good to understand what the project is about, but it's not just about coding. It's a lot more than that. Open source community needs you, needs volunteers, and needs things a lot more than just coding, just sitting on the laptop. That's not just the thing. One of the things is user facing stuff. So, having proper documentation. Engineers are really, really, really bad at documenting things and really hate documenting things. Uh, if someone who's more professional in terms of writing and can do technical writing, documentation is their thing. Open source community can really use that. UI designs, video editing, regularly setting up meetings and making policies, driving guidelines to, how to contribute, how to release, how to make sure that decisions are made. Those type of things are also peripherals to coding and is really essential to make a project a success. Uh, Decisions is something that has really hurt a lot of projects. I've seen a lot of nice projects go to shit because they've not really had decisions at the right place in the right time. And I think that a lot of people can really help with that aspect as well. And even communication, I think like, oh my God, communication is something that should be the forefront. A lot of these open source projects don't have Discord channels where you can communicate and figure out how to go about with different things, or advocating or publicizing the project itself. Some people are really good at public speaking. Why don't you use them to actually publicize your projects and making sure that the issues are being tracked, you're involving the community, you're talking to your end users and making improvements into your projects. So those type of communication is something that I think open source community can really use.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, honestly, because I think there's a lot of people that would want to get involved if they were aware that, like, okay, there's like a whole ecosystem that goes along with open source projects. It's not just AI engineers, right? Because if it were, that would be tough. Um, and then as far as like your own journey is concerned with open source, what kind of support have you found most meaningful on that journey?
uh, I think a lot of this thing was coming from within for me. It was a lot of self-content. I uh, often think that if it's a chore, you will never do it. But if it's something that you really enjoy, you will make it your mission to get it done. And that's where my contributions for open source come from. Uh, a lot of times, one of the things in terms of like, what's rewarding or like what really keeps me going kind of thing, it's basically whenever you're in these meetups or some random conferences, or just like, in a tech expo kind of situation, and you meet someone, you tell them your name, and they're like, "Oh, I think I've seen you in this discussion thread," or "Oh, I saw your name somewhere." Those things really make me feel nice about this stuff. But no, honestly speaking, also this something that Women in AI itself does is recognizing these hidden figures through awards and through these talks like this one. That is also very humbling and makes me think that, oh, I'm doing something useful and I'm taking the world to a better place. So yeah,
And it's appreciated and recognized.
yes, definitely, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's super important because you know, I think especially if people want to build their confidence and we think about it like, oh, we all have different skills, whether those are technical or soft skills, So um it's kind of like, yeah, like if you have that desire and that interest, then like why not explore it, because there's a whole community of people that you will get to know through that, whether it's through that open source community itself or like the greater community. Like I remember when I first started getting into data science, like I just kept messaging like random people on LinkedIn and being like, "Do you like your job?" you know, and I was like stunned by how many of them actually responded to me. I was like, "Wow, you're like okay to just talk to a stranger about your job in the middle of the afternoon. Like that's so nice of you." And then, beyond that, obviously as you start working and going to conferences and whatever, you start to like form those relationships. And then it becomes like a feedback loop, because they sort of feed your confidence, right? Like you acknowledge each other, like, "Oh, what are you involved in? Oh, okay, this is what I did. This is what you're doing." So there's a discussion, and that innately builds that confidence too. So yeah, that's really an awesome message. Thank you for that. um and then just like more broadly, what got you into the AI ethics space, and kind of what keeps you motivated to stay in it?
A lot of this curiosity basically came during my master's in computer science. I got into this AI and this whole thing, which was not yet that big when I was doing my master's, but also something that was upcoming and we could see the potential in it. And at that time, I was looking at the gaps in this technology. I was digging deeper into, okay, is it really good for humans? Is it really useful? Will it be like a game changer at that time? And then I realized that it can make or break the things for the humanity in itself. It can really be a booster for humans. It can be like, assistance for humans to make better judgments and make better decisions and really have a brighter future, have an easier life for humanity. A more elevated experience is how I like to say it. But it can also have a downside or go the other way around, like, going into the dark side of AI and ML engineering, things like that. And that scared me. And that scared actually made me push into doing all of this AI ethics work and trying to get deeper into this, doing some sort of research on it, and then advocating for it. And today, I really feel hopeful that we'll have this bright future where we're actually safeguarding ourselves from any of the bad that happens with this AI technology.
You think?
I'm hopeful. I'm
Okay.
hopeful.
I mean, okay, no, because that you think really comes from like an honest place in me where I worry about how long it will take to get there and how much damage will be done before it does, so that's like the thing. And also because like the rate of change is so fast. It's so it's relentless, like the edge of research, right? Constantly having new breakthroughs, new models that are now more powerful. Like there was a new one that was released. I saw the article like a few days ago, and it has like way fewer parameters, but is like, I don't know, 1,000 times faster or something. I have to go back to it, but it just it makes it feel so unsustainable. Like even if you know something, it's like you might not, it might not matter in a year, whatever you know, right? So that's where, yeah, I mean, so you know, we have to be honest about this, right? Because we're at the precipice of a lot of technological change. We've been there, you know, the last few years have been crazy. The next few years will be crazy because we're just seeing so much of, again, the standards being established now, right? So how do you stay grounded, you know, because whether it's the ethics, the engineering side, or the research side, again, there's just so many moving parts and so many truths and um, kind of grounding ideas that we have, like, may change very shortly. So, you know, that can get really overwhelming for people, and it's an overwhelm that I feel myself. So how do you personally stay grounded with it all?
I just let it go. I don't have a right answer for this. I think that I just go with the flow. I personally think that the more of these AI systems come up, uh, everything has its flaws, everything has its good sides. I try to read about it, stay updated with things, and because I feel like we should have awareness, we should have the knowledge of things that are happening around us. We don't necessarily need to be in the boat for everything that's happening. And then you just go, like, you sit back, relax in some situations, you go into and dive deeper into other lots of interest, and that's how you just stay grounded.
Great, just don't think about it.
No,
um,
you so I think ignorance is bliss. So, but at the same time, doesn't mean that ignore things. You do more. If you're not doing it, at least learn more. So just stay updated.
Actually, I think that's like a super good way to frame it, you know. If you feel that, then it probably means that you should get involved in some capacity, and
Yeah.
not even at work, like outside of work, like in, you know, your own time, right? That's something that you do for yourself. And then also, yeah, staying, learning. I mean, the learning I take a little bit feels a little grainy to me because I'm like, oh, like maybe you'll learn more things to be worried about, right? But I do think it's an invitation to maybe a deeper inquiry for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It may or may not work for everyone. I'm not a lot into all types of AI research because there's so much.
Yeah,
You just choose your poison. You just choose which one you want to solve or which one you want to get along in.
yeah, that's good advice. And then yeah, let's talk a little bit about kind of sort of the operational side of things too. You know, if someone wants to audit their own model for fairness, how would you recommend that they get started? What are some of the ideas you'd have for them?
Uh, there are a few things. So one of the things that I tell people is that think about, is the AI system really needed for your use case? Do you need a really large Gen AI model to solve the problem that you're trying to solve? If the answer is no, then just do a transparent system. Just have an easier model. Just have lesser parameters, as you said. There are a lot of tools that can help you design the transparency of the system. They can tell you, these explainable ways to solve a system. That could be, there are a bunch of open source tools. There is this Interpret ML by Microsoft. There is this What If tool by Google. Those are like really quick analysis kind of tools to figure out if your why your model is giving the results that they are giving.
Let's
However,
enunciate those one more time. You said Interpret ML for Microsoft, and what was the Google one?
what if
What
tools?
if? Okay, okay. What if tools?
Yes. But uh, I do understand that we are in the era of Gen AI. I do understand that large language models is a thing. People want to get into that boat. People want to make bolder experimentations and get more involved in this space with increased complexity. And transparency is not always the solution for that. For that, I do recommend doing aggressive benchmarking and aggressive monitoring. AI systems depreciate in quality over time, and having a faster iteration loops, faster feedback loops, and redefining these benchmarks and making sure that your models are up to those standards really helps in a production system in general. Uh, I think that is what most industry folks are doing today. And finally, I would say that give back to the community a bit. Share responsibility. It's not just your work, it's not just my work, it's all community. I'm a big advocate of open source, as you just saw. Uh, I just tell everyone that please, please, please contribute, make this world a better place. Uh, be vocal, be insightful. There are a lot of options to choose from, and it really helps building this community and influencing the community in the way you want it to be.
Awesome. Oh, thank you so much, Parul. I just have one last question for you. Um, and it's, it's a good place to end on, I think. What is a question you wish more people asked when it comes to, and you can choose ethical AI or open source communities?
Uh, I think one of the things that often come up, actually it came up like 3 months ago when I was in Boston at some conference where a person just came up to me and asked that, what is the cost of fairness? We often talk about we want fairness in ML systems. We know that AI systems in itself are very costly. It's very expensive to host an AI model. It's very expensive to train it, to make sure that it's working and having those iterations and everything in the loop. When you add fairness aspect to it, it adds to the cost. It's often in the range of 10%-ish, which can be a lot when it comes to AI. It can be in the order of millions as well. And uh, I truly wish that people think more about how we can make a universal standard frameworks for these AI systems or AI models where we have these safeguards from ground up. We don't want businesses or people to think about this. It just is built in from ground up. So I hope that people think more about this and really come together to deliver those goals.
No, I think that's such an important point because it kind of touches on why there's tension in the first place, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we don't have fairness because it's more lucrative not to. So,
Yes.
so yeah, no, I think that's a great point. A universal standards framework. I mean, there are, the overarching kind of like NIST and whatever, but I wouldn't say that they're comprehensive enough about how are you building from the ground up? Is there a fail safe, right? That has to come from everybody individually. So, wonderful. Thank you so much, Parul. Any last comments? Anything before we stop?
Uh, no, I just hope that people are more mindful whenever they're building these AI systems. And I am really excited to see more AI systems as they come along, especially with all this artificial super intelligence and general intelligence, and we're making machines more and more intelligent compared to humans. I hope that we can really reach a place where these machines are used to elevate our lives.
Thank you. Thank you. And then yeah, I'm excited to get those links too for any sort open source communities that feel passionately are ethical, are good places for people to go when they're looking for resources. And any other general resources for open source content, tools, like whatever you can share will be really super appreciated. And I'm probably gonna compile a lot of these ideas too, and maybe we'll do like a blog or something. But at the very least, we'll definitely make sure to link them on the video itself. So
Thank
thank
you
you so
so
much
much.
again for taking the time.
No, thank you so much for having me here and talking about this topic. It's very close to my heart, and I really appreciate you spending time with me here today.
It's totally my pleasure, and I love how passionate you are about it. So it's totally my honor. All
Thank you so
right,
much.
thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.